Hey everybody, it's Michelle. I am here to talk to you about our Patreon page. This is the page that you can go to help support our podcast with a monthly donation. When you commit to supporting us, you can get additional bonus content such as extra podcasts, our favorite playlists, our show notes, and eventually we would like to have merchandise to sell like t-shirts and baseball caps, and we would let you have first dibs at those. Of course, because we are coffee moms, we are offering membership levels that are as follows: the coffee membership, the cold brew membership, or the espresso membership. Now, no pressure whatsoever, but if you do love our podcast and you would like to help support it, you can go to patreon.com/messybunmamaspodcast. That is Patreon, patreon.com/messybunmamaspodcast. There you can choose a membership level that works for you. Melissa and I want to thank you in advance for your love and your support.
Messy Bun Mamas. I'm Joe. I'm John. I am Malcolm.
Hello.
Hey, everybody.
This is the Messy Bun Mamas podcast, and I am Melissa.
I'm Michelle.
And today we are going to go into postpartum mood disorders when your mental health is controlled by your hormones, part 2.
Part 2.
Yeah, I know that you guys are just so excited. After listening to that first one, you're just like, these are some rock star moms.
We are.
We're all right now. So before we get into that, let's do our mom moments.
So my mom moment is actually from this morning. Joe woke up and right away yelled to me instead of just coming and getting me. Mom, I have to get up because I have to pee. All right, let's go, buddy. Let's move fast. So we were moving quickly, and as we're walking down the steps, he said, Mom, I have to tell you a secret. I said, okay. He says, I had a squishy cookie and you ate it, and that made me and Dad sad. I said, oh, was that your dream? He said, yeah, I dreamed it. I dreamed that you ate my squishy cookie and that made me and Dad sad. I said, well, it's a good thing it's a dream. Mommy would never take something of yours and eat it. It's kind of a white lie, but I don't think I would do it intentionally in front of him.
Do it behind his back.
Right. But he went to the bathroom and we were sitting down in the living room, and I was getting ready to find a show for him, and he was sitting in his little chair. He has one of those little like tiny people recliner chairs, and I sat down on the couch and I started to like flip through to see what I could find him to watch, and he brought it up again and he said, Mommy, it really made me sad that you ate my squishy cookie. And I said, well, again, not really paying attention. I'm looking at the TV trying to find something. I'm like, it's a good thing that was a dream. He stands up and he comes over and he goes, it wasn't a dream, Mom. And then he puts his hand on my arm, like in that really, like he's trying to comfort me. And he turns my face towards him and he goes, but I still love you anyway. You're having conversations with. But I told my brother last night, I said, I think I have to be the worst parent in the world because I laugh at like 75% of the stuff that Joe says to me. I'm like, so, but anyway, that was my mom moment. My son, despite the fact that I took his squishy cookie from him in his dream, he still loves me anyway.
I mean, it's like when your spouse cheats on you in your dream and you're just like mad at him all day about
you
it.
Still feel that
like,
bitter
no,
anger.
you're mean to me and I I love you anyways. But you're mean.
Right.
I for sure have been salty at my husband for stuff he's done in my dreams.
Yes.
And he's like, you can't be mad at me for that. And I'm like, I know it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't change the way that I feel.
Right. I still feel that angst in my heart about you.
So like, sorry, but it just kind of is what it is. You gotta get over it.
Right.
I'm just gonna move on.
I think you should spend all day making up for the dream you.
I should say that next time. I for sure should say that next time. So my mom moment is, so I for the first time like tried to actually do a thing with Rayla's hair.
Mm-hmm.
It was a monumental fail, but in a couple different aspects, it was good. So she had a bath, and after her bath, like she likes to like sit down and like have you like brush out all of her hair and whatever. And it was so she sat down, I brushed out all of her hair, and then I tried like braiding her hair so the next day it would be like kind of like crimped. So it was, you know, had a little wave to it or whatever. She looked like a monster. But my mom moment is she sat through me braiding her entire head in braids. I mean, it was only like 7 braids, maybe 8, but like
still that took time because she doesn't have a whole lot of hair to work with.
Time.
Yeah.
And she was a champ, she was a pro, she sat through it, and she didn't pull any of it out through the night. She slept in braids, and I was like very impressed.
Yeah.
With her ability to like sit. So I'm chalking it up to like me being a good mom because I feel like we were able to, you know, establish a certain level of training by just like sitting her down and doing her hair, so she kind of
on a regular basis. Yeah.
So she kind of knows. So that's what I'm hoping. I'm sure there'll be like multiple regression points, but
especially as she gets her own mind and own opinions and
right.
Or at least can voice them.
Exactly.
Because I'm sure she does already.
Right. That's very true. So yeah, that is my mom moment.
That is a good one, though. That's just like a quality time thing. When I first had Joe and we were talking about having another one, I always said, I for sure don't want girls because
I said the same thing.
Girls are just so much work. And then I remember my mom like toiling over brushing out my hair and stuff. And I'm like, I can't do that. But now I think, wouldn't it be so nice to be able to do like the curlers and the hair and play Barbies with someone, because that's a little more my speed.
Yes. And action figures just are not the same.
And I don't want to line up all the little plastic army men and all that stuff. So
right, who wants to do that? Just to knock them all down.
To knock them all down.
Like, I hate building a tower just so you can be a monster and stomp it down. Like,
right.
I'm not gaining anything here. I just feel like you're ruining my stuff.
Right. Oh, I think we are the same people. But no, so I think that is it's a nice bonding time, and I know that you've talked about that before.
Yeah.
That it's just a good bonding time, and it
is very much a good bonding time between her and I, and it was just nice because, like, you know, she does like getting her hair brushed. She walked the brush over to her dad and tried like pointing. He's like, no, Bud did your hair all pretty. And I mean, braids don't look nice when you're going to bed, like,
right.
And it wasn't pretty, but like it was just nice that it was like a thing that like we did. And,
yeah.
Again, like, it turned out she looked like a monster the next day once I took her braids out, but it's fine.
She loved the moment though, right? And that's all that matters.
Yeah, exactly. So we will get into part 2 of our postpartum episode after the short break. Hi, this is Melissa from the Messy Bun Mamas podcast, and I want to talk to you today about Anchor. This app, let me be real honest, is basically lifesaver. I got the random idea, on a Tuesday that I wanted to try and hit up my mom friends and try and get a podcast going. And Anchor has made it so smooth. I downloaded this app, at 7 a.m. on a Saturday, got my plug and play microphone, and we were able to go in, record. We had a high quality recording, and it turned out great. And I didn't have to take any of the tutorials or anything like that. So if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's a safe and easy way to make a podcast. It's also free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. And Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and so many more platforms. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership, which is amazing. So I don't have to feel like a failure if nobody listens to me talk. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. For example, we just recorded our first episode and I was already able to go in and remove something really stupid that I said. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. All right, so episode 2 of postpartum mood disorders, when your mental health is controlled by your hormones. So we did kind of go over some stereotypes and like some of the extreme situations that we went through postpartum, and the feeling of disconnect, which seems to be like one of the more popular and more socially acceptable, I guess, symptom of postpartum that you hear people talk about. So this one, I think I kind of want to go into a little bit more of maybe the symptoms that I experienced and you experienced that probably aren't so well known. So the first one that I want to talk about is like anger. So I know that we kind of talked about how like we're both kind of screamers in general, but I feel like postpartum, like especially this last time with Rayla,
takes it up a whole nother notch.
It takes like my voice reached decibels that I did not think that I like, the almost monster growling that I was able to do. It just like almost blew my mind.
And the whole time you're doing it, you're like, what
am I doing?
This is totally overboard.
Yeah.
But it still doesn't stop like the fury in your head from going that extra level up.
Yeah. And it's like, it's almost like you are both knowing that you're overreacting and knowing that you're not going to feel bad about it later.
Right.
Like completely justified in the moment.
Right.
Like, you stepped on my foot, 2-year-old. Like, you're gonna get the wrath.
Right.
But it's just like the level of anger. I was completely shocked by it because like you and I have both said, like, we're both kind of yellers, so it's fine. Like, we yell at our kids, whatever. But like, this wasn't even just like yelling, like where it's warranted or like that sort of thing. Like, it was just insane levels of angry about things.
Over everything.
Yes, everything.
It's like your body was just waiting to be angry about something. Yep.
The other thing that like I really struggled with, so I know I've said before, like my husband kind of swears like a sailor. So like my kids are exposed to, like, he doesn't really swear at us.
It's just in his general conversation.
In his general conversation. Look, he can't feel my eye roll, but like whatever. But postpartum, I started like swearing a lot more, and I started like, when I would talk to my kids, I'd be like, are you effing kidding me? Or like things like that. And it's like, that's just not the way I talk to my kids.
Right.
And it's not the way that I talk to other people. It's not the way I talk to my husband. It's just not the way that I talk. So the fact that it was coming out that way, it was coming out so consistently, it was coming out, just so naturally, like it should have been a bigger deal to me at the time. Like, I remember one time, John had my phone and he was talking to my mom on the phone, and he like brought the phone too close to his face and he like drooled on the phone. And he's like, it was after Rayla was born, I think. So like it was 2 years ago, year and a half ago, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And like I freaked out on him for like drooling on my phone. And my mom was on the phone the whole time as I'm like freaking out and like on my kid. And she's just like, I don't like when you talk to him that way. And I was like, well, good thing you're not here parenting my child, because I'm pretty sure your opinion doesn't matter.
Right.
I mean,
when people say that stuff in the moment, it's like, again, you're not helping.
You're just making me more angry.
Right.
And I for sure don't think that was her intention.
Right.
It was more like, and I'm sure like if she went back to that moment, it was more like, I'm concerned with the way that you're talking to him. Like, are you sure you're okay? I took it as like I'm judging you. Yeah, like you're judging the way that I'm parenting my kid, and you're thinking I'm overreacting. And I'm like, you don't understand all the things he did today to warrant this response.
Right. This was the cherry on top of the icing on top of the cake.
Right. Exactly. Yes. And it's just like, but in the moment, I was just like freaked out on her for like daring to question my parenting, like. And it's in instances like that, like in hindsight, like we said in the last episode, that it's so great to be like, wow, that was kind of an extreme reaction. But in the moment, it's just like anger, just irrational.
And like I said, for me at least, it's like it was just always there.
Yeah.
Just waiting to hear something, and it's
like roar.
Yeah.
Like you're like, ah!
Yeah, it's like, who can I misunderstand right now?
What situation can I blow out of proportion at the drop of a hat?
I mean, the toilet paper roll just changed the toilet paper. And that I agree. It was little things like that I'd come out of the bathroom just shrieking at the top of my lungs. And I'm thinking, this is overboard, Michelle. You really need to just dial it back. And then Dan's just like, hey, what are you flipping out about?
Which doesn't help either.
It doesn't help. It's like, I need you to be at the same level I'm at right now. I need you to be mad about this too. So yeah, I totally get it. It's just, at least for me, it felt like the rage never really went away. Gone from me. Yeah.
No, for sure. I definitely agree. And I mean, I don't know, like I don't remember it as profoundly with the boys. And I think part of that's just because like I wasn't as aware as I was with Rayla, where I was like, something's like definitely wrong. Mm-hmm. And we'll go over today the moment that we kind of decided, my husband and I decided that like there was something wrong.
Right.
But you know, like, there are swear words that never in my life have left my mouth. Because, like, I'm not a big swearer, and there's certain words that I don't like, I don't appreciate. I think that they're just, like, whatever. You do you, I don't like them. So, like, I never said them, but, like,
I feel like I know which one you're going to say you really hate.
Yeah, it's the one that has God in it.
Yes.
So that one, I was just kind of raised that it was like above all the other swears, like it's much worse.
Well, because you're actually cursing.
Yeah.
Whatever it is that you say that in front of, in the middle, or at the end of. That's the way I was raised too. You're saying, God, do this to whatever. And
yeah.
So,
and like I was so rageful that I was like saying this to my children. Now, let me pull that back a little bit to just emphasize what Michelle just said. You are asking God
to damn
whatever it is.
Right.
And it's just like, I mean, never in my life have I said that swear word, because it's just like, it was just always, it's not a popular one anyways. Like, it's not like they say it in, a bunch of songs or whatever.
Movies.
Like, it's not a popular one.
Right.
Really. It's like, I feel like it's the old man swear.
Right.
The only people I know who say that word are like very old men. But
and my husband.
I'm not going to change my answer.
No, I agree.
She just got it.
He doesn't listen anyway. So this can be our own personal joke and everybody around us.
So, but it came out of my mouth like a lot. And I was just like, again, in hindsight, I'm just like, that was a little extra. Like, I definitely have that boundary where I don't like swearing in general, but I for sure don't like that swear. So
Right.
the fact that, like, I was saying it to my children,
The people you love.
I was just, like, below my mind. Like, the anger and the rage that I was experiencing, like, it was just to a whole other level of just shocking. So yeah, that's.
I agree. I personally hate that word so much, but agreed. I would say that today. And that has actually, and I've said it to other members of his family too, because they'll say that just in general to someone, GD, Melissa. And I'm like, what? Why would you curse your own child like that? And so, I mean,
and then there's that awkward moment. They were like, well, that's not what I mean. It's like, are you listening to the words you're saying?
Right. I can understand if you're just using extra adjectives in as your swear words, but you're actually giving a command to something. And so that's been like one of my big things. And so same thing after Joe, I would get so furious with Dan. I would say it to him with his name, and he would stop and he'd be like, "Don't you curse me."
And you're like, "Don't do that in my face."
Right? You know, it's like some people, I think, see the fire and they still get the shovel out and pull up some of that coal and just throw it right on that fire. It's like, that's probably not the best way to respond.
Probably not.
So I totally agree. I'm not a huge swearer myself. You have to really get me up to a degree of angry to get me to say something bad. But I will say that it definitely flowed a whole lot easier after Joe was born. Just like my brain was, and like you said, there should have been something in my head saying, ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. This is a little extra. That's it. That's all. That's all we're looking for. Just, and this is a little extra.
Right. And I don't get to be this way just because I have had a baby. I should probably take care of this.
Right. For sure. So yeah, anger is definitely one of the side effects that it's probably more common than any of us like to acknowledge. But like, again, I feel like we're being really open with each other, so it's a little bit easier for us to be like, I experienced that too. But I mean, in an open forum of like everybody pretending that they don't get postpartum, or postpartum isn't as prevalent as it really is, it's hard to be like, yeah, I'm like damning my children. Right. Like,
and I did it without a sense of
guilt,
of wrong or right.
Yep. Just no, nothing.
Right out.
Yep. Totally. Absolutely. The other side effect that I wanted to talk about, and this one, so overprotectiveness. So when I say overprotectiveness, I mean like overprotectiveness to the point where it's seriously impeding on your sense of self, your sense of life, your quality of life.
Yes.
So I'm going to give you some examples of mine. The first one is you wake up to check that your baby's breathing.
Yes.
Okay, now I'm not talking about like every like couple hours. I'm talking about like literally you wake up in a panic every 10 minutes through the night to make sure your child is breathing.
Putting your hand on their chest. If you don't feel that underneath the nose, yes.
So that logical check to make sure your child's breathing. And there is a certain amount of like checking your child's breathing that comes with just being a new mom. But I'm talking about like 2, 3, 4 months
sleep.
In.
Yeah.
You're not sleeping because you're checking to make sure your child is breathing. Like that's illogical.
Yes.
Like that's extra. I will tell you that mine got so bad that I could not sleep in the room with Rayla. I stopped sleeping in our bedroom.
You had to break the connection.
Because I was just like, I'm getting no sleep. Right. All I'm doing is checking to make sure she's breathing. And the thing is like, she's breathing fine.
Right.
She's perfectly fine. There's no reason for me to check her breathing. She's breathing.
Did you feel like a little justified in that fear though when she did get sick and have to go to the hospital? She's like, see, this is why I was checking. Your brain like totally like legitimizes everything. It's like, you were not wrong.
So Rayla, if you haven't listened to previous episodes, Rayla went into the ICU when she was 6 months old. She had very severe RSV. Like her oxygen it at times got down to like 50.
Wow.
We brought her in just because like she kind of was a little muffled, and her pediatrician was like, I think you should bring her down, just have them check her. And like we're in the ER, and they're just like, immediately we bring our baby in, and immediately they like put her on a gurney and hook up oxygen, and they're like making all these whatever, and they're like, is there a bed in an ICU? And I'm just like, whoa.
Right.
So I did kind of feel a little bit justified because she was only 6 months old when that happened. It's not like she was 4.
Right.
So ironically, since then, you know, she does have kind of bad lungs. She has trouble breathing. But I didn't obviously know that at the time.
At the time, right.
So the illogical like checking to make sure she's breathing. Like I said, I left the room, but that kind of didn't diminish the fear. It just kind of made it where I was like, okay, well, I'm too lazy to walk all the way upstairs to check on her. So we're just going to hope that she's alive and breathing.
For the same reason my alarm clock is set apart from the bed.
You gotta
get up, right?
Exactly. The other thing that I had a horrible sense of dread or overprotectiveness of was that like whenever this was more so with like John, whenever John was in a car with anybody who wasn't me, I was terrified they were going to die in a car accident or get in a car accident or whatever, or that like his seatbelt wasn't buckled right and he was going to die in a car accident, or just like to the point where like if Mike's parents took him, I would call them and be like, hey, I just want to make sure you got there okay. Like, I don't think they ever knew. But I for sure knew. Like, it was completely illogical. There was no reason to think that, like, besides the fact that they were in a car, there was no reason to think that they were going to get in a car accident. Or that they didn't buckle him right. Or that, like, you know, just that completely terrifying fear that something was going to happen. It wasn't when I was driving, because I feel like I had the control over the situation, right? So it was fine.
It all goes back to that control, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I know, we're shocked. And so the last one that I want to talk about is like kind of unique to me. Yeah, it's gonna sound like really morbid. So my kids love blankets. We call them TTs. We have since John was a baby, and it's just, we're on kid number 3. They're called TTs. And they like cuddling with them. They like playing with them. They like making forts, whatever. Well, after Rayla was born, John and Malcolm, you know, would play with blankets a lot. And I would freak out. Up until like the beginning of this year, I was terrified of my kids playing with blankets. Do you want to know why? Why? Because I was worried that one of them was going to yank on the blanket too hard while it was over one of their heads and their neck was going to snap. Oh my goodness. Like, so obviously I know, like, that's a completely illogical reaction. Right. Like, my kids are going to break each other's necks playing with these blankets. But, like, it was so bad to the point, like, when we went to other people's houses, like, close friends of mine, they would put away their blankets so none of the kids could have blankets when I was over, because it was so intense and such a huge thing. It had become such a huge thing,
like an illogical fear that's just in your head. And let me ask you this, just to clarify them, because some people have those types of fears about everything, Dan. Like, if he could find a horrible way to work a situation out, it's going to end that way. But before kids and before like postpartum depression, is that something that you had? Just
No,
you didn't like come up with these.
no. Like these
Okay.
worst case scenario sorts of things. No.
All right. So I just want to clarify because there are some people that will have them, and so you don't even think of it as being a trigger, but there's others of us who are just like, hey, I'm living life the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there definitely are times where I'm just like, don't smother your brother with a blanket.
Right.
Like, I feel like that's one of the more, like, that's a legit thing to say.
Please loosen up the grip around your brother's neck. I mean, just
yeah, like, do I have fear that one day they might suffocate each other? I mean, yeah, that definitely has entered my mind. Like, oh my gosh, like, he's literally shoving his face into a pile of blankets, sitting on his shoulders, and like, it's like he's gonna suffocate him.
I shouldn't even laugh because I know this, having brothers, this is like a real thing.
Yeah, but like, worried that one of them, like, literally in my mind, I could picture like John pulling on the blanket off Malcolm's head and like snapping his neck.
Somehow just wraps around him just right. Yep.
Number one, really?
Right.
Like, no. So, that was like probably my most extreme, like, overprotectiveness that I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is this is a really, really prominent sign of postpartum depression, is that illogical overprotectiveness that like a lot of women just associate with like, oh, I'm a new mom, so I'm just concerned.
Right.
And it's like, if you are concerned in a way that is not taking over your life, yes, it's concerned. You want to peel your grapes because you don't want your kid to choke. That's normal.
Right.
You want to cut the food small. You want to give them mushy things. Like, I feel like those are all normal things. But like, if you don't want to feed your kids solid food until they're 2 because you're terrified they're gonna like choke, that is, in my opinion, I'm not a doctor, but that's like an overreaction.
Right.
So it's like, as moms, we kind of have to gauge like, and I know it's hard in the moment.
Like you said, is it consuming you?
Yeah.
From mine, and I'm actually glad we're discussing this because I would have never thought this being an actual like symptom of postpartum depression. But mine, I became like so unrealistically afraid that someone was going to enter our house.
Oh, yes. It's because your husband works second shift.
Yes, he's a second shifter. And so I mean, I can, it's more than 2 hands the times that I called my husband and asked him where the bullets to the gun were. Just because I was convinced, and it doesn't help to have spastic dogs.
Yeah.
Especially the 2 are pretty laid back, but our rescue dog is a little high strung. she well, what it is she'll either smell or hear an animal, so then she'll go stand at because we're not really country, just to give some people perspective, but we have 2 acres. All of our neighbors have at least 1.5 acres or more, so we've got
the front of your house is on a busy road.
Is on a busy road, and so and we're not far from Milwaukee.
Yeah.
And so I legit thought that I would see, and this is just how your brain will make everything up. I legit thought there were times where I would see people walking down our driveway and I mean, even
terror.
I would sit and just shake in fear, thinking that how am I going to defend myself? How am I going to defend my baby? All these dumb dogs do is bark. They're completely useless, and the cats just stare at me. So, I mean, that was my.
Thank goodness you have a hamster.
Yeah, now we have a hamster. We also have security cameras because my husband got tired of me calling saying where are the bullets to the gun. So he's like, Michelle, the last thing I would do is give you bullets for a gun when you're so high strung about something. He's like, no telling what you would shoot. But part of my fear is just some of that fear came from the knowledge of we get rabbits in our backyard on a regular basis. So we spend spring and summertime chasing down dogs with rabbits in their mouth. And so, I mean, there have been some nights at like 11 p.m., 12 a.m., we're running around the yard trying to catch these dogs, screaming at the top of our lungs, and like no one ever calls the police. Like, there have been times my husband has like had to actually shoot a rabbit, and nobody calls the police. And I'm like, so in my head, I'm thinking,
nobody's here to help me.
Even with our alarm, if the alarm system went off, who would help me? Nobody's paying attention. Very obviously, I have to defend myself. So it's just my brain took these imaginations that I saw and coincided it with what I knew, that our neighbors probably wouldn't call if they heard anything strange. And made this, I mean, I would call Dan screaming just and saying, oh, all right, fine, if you're not going to let me know where the bullets are, you need to come home now. I would like force him to come home early. And so I mean, I'm probably like a little more relaxed because, like, I know they say you're not supposed to put blankets on babies, but and Dan was like, we shouldn't put a blanket on him. I'm like, look, the kid's freezing. We're going to put a blanket on him. And so, like, some of that stuff, I was like, to each his own, but get me at home. And even still, sometimes to this day, that fear will spring back up in me.
It's so easy to remember that terror.
And it's the same thing. Like, I lived by myself or with a brother or someone for forever. I mean, I've gone to Chicago by myself. I lived in St. Louis by myself. I mean,
never.
These things never bothered me. I walked down streets of like bad neighborhoods, just happy as can be. Hey, you want to come to Sunday school with me? And it never, fear for my life never crossed my mind. And so I totally get like that irrational,
overprotective instinct that's just like, and I'm sure like if at the time, maybe not, maybe people would have been like, that's an overreaction, but I feel like people are like, well, you're a new mom, so you're just worried.
They kind of brush it off. And that's exactly what did happen. Oh, that's new. You're just get used to it.
I do not want to get used to this.
I will die young if I have to live like this every day. I will age way faster than I already am.
The thing is, I feel like as a mom, you always worry about your kids. You always want them to be safe and whatever. That is not what we were talking about.
No, there's a difference between saying, oh, I wonder if Joe is safe while he's out with his friends at the park, versus I'm imagining all these huge things that could be happening to Joe while he's at the park.
And like literally you can get nothing done. And do nothing. Think of nothing else.
It consumes you, and it consumes you to the point where you'd rather, for this scenario, you'd rather just keep your kid at home with you. Versus letting them go out with anyone.
Which is illogical.
Very illogical.
Because you need a break.
Hopefully Dan will listen to this. Like I said, he is like the person in our relationship that would
worst case
scenario for everything. And I'm like, I cannot live my life like this. So
I kind of want to go through the meltdown that I had that kind of made me and my husband feel like, so I think there's something wrong. So Rayla was 5 months old. And my brother was coming over to borrow something or to drop something off or some variance of that.
He was coming by the house.
Mm-hmm. So he was like, I'm on my way. Okay. At this time, he lived like 15 minutes away. So 15 minutes comes and goes. I'm like, oh, he's not here yet. 20 minutes comes and goes. I'm like, Huh.
I have a very
What is-
similar story to this.
What's going on? 25 minutes comes and goes. I'm like I'm starting to like freak out. 30 minutes goes by. I'm in the kitchen, hyperventilating and crying that my brother has died, that he's laying dead on the side of the road in a car accident because I needed him to come over and like do this thing. And it's all my fault and he's dead. And my nieces are going to grow up without a father. And like, oh my gosh, like my brother's dead. Like, what am I going to do? Like, blah, blah, blah. And Mike's just like, now my brother shows up at some point, and I was just like, what are you doing? Like, you told me you would be. And my husband's just like, I think something's wrong.
But again, you're like, shut up.
Yeah. But like, and it wasn't, I wasn't really like in the moment of me like hyperventilating that my brother was dead. I didn't react to him that way because he came at it like I was falling apart, and he was both like emotionally and physically like holding me up.
And doesn't that make the difference?
Yeah. I think if he would have stood across the room and said like, there's something wrong with you.
Or
by the way, he has done that before, and I don't react well.
Or I think you need to calm down. Let me show you how uncalm I can be.
Yeah. No, I don't.
It's like I morph into a dragon anytime somebody says that to me. I'm just gonna burn the whole city down.
Right. Absolutely. But no, I felt like in that moment he was like experiencing like the anguish with me. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And he was like, there's something wrong. Like there's something there's something wrong.
Right.
Because like quite obviously there was something wrong. He was fine. My brother just is late to everything, and he had to stop 14 different places on the way here. Like they weren't important places. He had to stop and get a snack, get some Starbucks, get whatever. He didn't even have decency to bring me Starbucks.
Right. Which would have probably soothed all of that over, right?
So yeah, this was the moment that we realized something was wrong, and then I called my doctor, and I had an appointment, and we went on medication.
Yeah.
So what was your moment?
So my moment was not touchy-feely. That kind of relates to this. It was, and I don't say that even in a mean way. There was actually no resolution to this, what happened. And I would say Joe was maybe, well, it was in March because the zoo had just opened. So maybe he was just a little over a year old, but it was kind of around that same point where I kind of threw everything up in the air and said, I'm done with all of this.
Yeah.
But I had invited my sister-in-law to go to the zoo with us. Because we have the membership with the guest pass, and and she's like, sure. They live about 20 minutes away. She said, sure, no problem. What time are you expecting to leave? And I said, well, I want to leave by 11 because then that will give us a couple hours there, and then I can get home with Joe. And she's like, okay. Well, then she called me up, and she called me up about, I would say maybe like 20 minutes to, and she's like, hey, my niece is getting ready. And then we're going to leave. I just have to stop by the bank real quick. Okay, no problem. Well, I know it's about 20 minutes to my house.
Yes.
So 5 after 11, I have Joe in the car waiting. Nothing. Nobody there. I try calling. No answer to the cell phone. And then, so I'm starting to get a little irritated. Like, if I don't have this kid home by 1 o'clock, because Joe was not a kid that would nap in the car, nap in the stroller, nap other places.
Yeah.
He had to be in his bed or me holding him.
That's annoying.
And right. And so I'm like, and at that point, it's like, you nap or we all die. And so I waited and waited and waited, and then it came to the point, I think it was like 11:30 at that point, and I had gone back into the house already, and I was talking to Dan, and they kind of just strolled up to the onto the porch and into the house, and I was already in freak out mode. I just freaked out. I'm like, it has literally been almost an hour since you said that you would be here. And it wasn't my fear of something happening to them. It was just, um, for whatever reason, I had made it up in my head that she lied to me. And I have this huge thing about, I don't care if you think that you're going to make me mad with what you're about to say. I'd rather be mad and have you tell me the truth than find out that you lied to me and make me even more mad. But I had just, instead of thinking, oh, it took them a little longer to do this, or like you said, maybe they stopped an extra place. I was so furious. I mean, I literally just sat there and screamed at her. I mean, just screamed. I wouldn't even let her get a word in edgewise. Dan went and hid in the bathroom the whole time. And that's how,
wow, Dan.
like, that's like how irate I was. I mean, I just sat there and screamed, and I did not let her get a word in edge. There was no letting her have her say or her piece or anything like that. And I carried out that grudge for like 2 or 3 weeks. Like she tried to call and talk to me. Like I said, when I was at that point in my life that I'm like, nope, you're done, you're done, you're done, you're done. And I mean, it was 2 or 3 weeks before I would even talk to her on the phone about it. And even still then, there was really never a resolution with me at that point.
Yeah.
Like now I feel like we could sit down and have a conversation about it. But at that point, I was just like, I am not wrong about this. I will never be wrong about this. and Dan at that point, again, it's in how you deliver it. Like if he had like come to me lovingly and just been like, hey, but I think it has something to do with how his family reacts to like mental health and things like that too. They're a let's just shove it all down a little further, where I'm like a just let it all out. And I'm a little more open about mental health just because I feel that it is a stigma. I am sometimes a little, I do not share with everyone if I feel like you're not receptive to that.
Yeah.
But if you want to hear my story, I'm going to tell you my stories of dealing with mental health, because I think that it's so much of a stigma that it makes people afraid that they have to say anything.
Yeah, it's not like I walk up to strangers like, hi, I'm Melissa, and I suffer with A, B, C, and D.
Right,
it's just like,
right.
You know, if somebody is vulnerable or like they're struggling with something, I can be like, you know, I understand where you're coming from. This is context of why I understand where you're coming from.
These are my stories. But he was very much a, hey, I think you might have handled that wrong. And so there was just, but at that point, then it came to things came to the head with me in my leadership positions at the church and stuff too. And I was just like, you know what? Done with all of you. And it took me a couple of months to realize that I was dealing with either postpartum depression or child depression, or
right.
Whatever.
I don't like that it really has a cap on it.
Right.
I just don't.
Well, because I didn't realize. I think it just carried.
Yeah.
It just compounded and made it worse and made it worse. And it literally took me a couple months, and it was one night in church. I love our former pastor, but he had come over to pray with me, and I was just very resistant. I was very bitter and angry with everybody.
Yeah.
And so now I know he went over and told someone from our church, Ray, and that he thought I was dealing with a spirit. Well, if you call my hate for everybody around me a spirit, then yes. But so Ray came over and prayed with me, and he said it out loud. He said, "Do you hear me now, God?" And like that so encapsulated everything I felt like. Is somebody listening to me? Does somebody hear me? Like, it just broke me.
Yeah.
And like, I had like one of the most spiritual moments of my life at that point, because I was like, and not just am I able to now voice what I'm feeling, but that somebody else, without knowing any of the story or anything else, only just that somebody thought that I had a spirit on me, was able to feel what I was feeling at that moment.
Yeah.
And
Of just the brokenness.
yes, the brokenness. And I it was just what I needed at that moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, it had to come to a head, though. I wish I would have been receptive, or even to myself,
Yeah.
open and honest with myself, and said, "Hey, something's wrong with you, dude." Like in January, I was like, something's wrong. We maybe need to go talk to the doctor.
Well, and it's definitely one of those things where it's just like, I feel like removed from the situation, like I should have had the forethought to be like,
Right.
isn't that normal?
Right. But you're at that time, you're like, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm a strong and mighty woman, valiant in battle.
Right.
I can handle anything.
Right? It's so true. It's just like, you can deal with it. It's not a big deal. We can just like, we will get through it.
Right.
It's exactly. It's just, yeah. So this is the conclusion of our second episode on Post Partum. I do want to give you a different helpline. Keep your options open.
Right.
So if you want to contact the Office on Women's Health Helpline, it's 1-800-994-9662. I do want to say that I know we were pretty like open and honest about certain situations in this episode, and I don't want it to come off like we're complaining, I guess. I really think that when more women are open about their side effects of postpartum depression, that it helps other moms realize, like, hey,
something might be wrong here.
Yeah, because there was lots of times that I didn't realize that thinking my children were going to break each other's necks with blankets probably was a side effect of, postpartum depression. Instead, I was just like, oh, I'm just a concerned mother. I want them to be safe.
Right.
You know what I mean?
This is my motherly instinct kicking in.
No.
Right.
So we hope that, you got something out of these episodes. And, if I could say anything, it's the same thing that I said when we did the other episode. It's just that don't be afraid to seek help. And if someone criticizes you, it's okay to let that person go out of your life. You don't need that person.
I mean, if it's a dear loved one, don't let somebody else's anxiety about how it may make you look keep you from getting the help that you need to be a healthier person.
Yeah, absolutely. So after this break, we'll come back with this week's recommendations. All right, so let's get into our recommendations.
Yay!
Do you want to go first?
Sure.
Okay.
So my first recommendation is because I love to support small businesses. And there is a lady that's here in our area, but she does have a website, that makes t-shirts, and I love her t-shirts because they're fun. Like I have one that says I'm only talking to Jesus today, and like so many people comment on it. It's just it's a fun way to be sassy without having to be sassy, I
Or
guess.
vulgar.
Yes. And so it's Teased by Jennifer. Her website is designsbyjenniferlee.com, and it's so it's designs by Jennifer with the two N's and then leigh.com. But she's like super amazing. I had a request for Father's Day for a t-shirt, and she didn't have it up in her list of things to sell, but I sent her what I wanted. She's like, yeah, I can do that, and we arranged it all out, and yeah, I was like, so she's very flexible. We'll do custom orders, and I've seen where she has posted where she's done like the bridal the bridal family. I don't know, my brain is like dead today apparently. But just like the t-shirts for like the bride and the bridesmaids and all of them. Yeah, so
the bridal party.
Yes, the bridal party. Thank you. The bridal family.
I mean, sure.
Right. So it's just very cute, and so I highly recommend her just because she does treat it like a business, and she just gets everything out there. Like at Christmas time when USPS, God bless them, was just like taking forever. She uses FedEx, and FedEx has the Smart Post, which transfers to the post office. And so I had messaged her about some shirts that I had ordered, and she was like right on it. I mean, there wasn't like well, you're just going to have to wait like everybody else. It was hey, I'm really sorry that this is happening. Let me get on it.
The post office is garbage right now.
Right. And she's like, so, and she's like, if you never see it, I'm going to get some right back out to you. And so I can't recommend her enough. So that was my recommendation for the week.
All right. So we will post some of her t-shirts in our social media. All right. Mine, I'm really excited about it.
Okay.
It's the Kidtastic take apart toys. So they're toys that are put together with screws.
Joe loves those.
And you get a screw with each toy, and like the dinosaur you can put together with the screwdriver and the screws, and they have trucks, and they have like all sorts of stuff. And it's a really good like STEM toy. I mean, I'm in construction, so like of course I'm all about like learning how to use tools, and like,
well, it's good for like dexterity and
how to put things together. And sometimes not every kid responds to Legos, and I think sometimes we just kind of get stuck in like, well, Legos is the only building thing, so
right.
But like last year, I think one of the godparents got these for our kids, and they were just amazing. It takes them hours just to figure it out, in addition to the fact that it does teach them, good lessons. And then, so Malcolm, because he has his little screwdriver now, so whenever I'm putting something together, he wants to come help me with his little screwdriver, which actually he does use like real screwdrivers and hammers when I'm putting something together. But yeah, so Kidtastic take apart toys. We'll post a link to to our Amazon recommendation store, because I mean, the set that I'm talking about, it's 7 toys with 7 individual screwdrivers, and it's like $30.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's less than $5 a piece.
Right?
So,
and Legos are like $1,400. Like,
look,
something
don't get me started on the over $100 my husband spent while we were at ladies retreat on Legos. I'm like, oh my God. Anyway, they had fun.
Yeah.
I don't tell him he can't. I just roll my eyes.
So yeah, that's my recommendation this week.
No, I think that that's amazing because it's not just like the dexterity and all that, but it's your gross and fine motor skills and
Yep.
everything as well. And then they're building too. So I
Yeah.
love those.
I love them too. So I'm really excited for you guys to take a look at them because they're bright colors and everything too. And the parts are just easy to find because it's like one piece is like all like red and blue.
Right.
So it's like, you know, if you're looking in the bin that it comes with, you just got to look for the red and blue pieces or whatever.
Right.
And I think it's just important for kids to like start thinking, how do I put this together? How does it go together? Or whatever. So I don't know. That's my recommendation.
Okay. Thank you for joining us for the Messy Bun Mamas podcast. If you can't wait to talk to us more, then hit us up on social media. We are on Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube at Messy Bun Mamas Podcast.
You can also reach out to us on our website at www.messybunmamaspodcast.com or email us at messybunmamaspodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for joining us. Have a great week.
I am Messy Palmheads.
This is Messy Bun Mamas Podcast.
This is Messy Poop.
Messy buns, you silly.